Welcome to Self-Love Ignited. My name is Katie Allen. I'm a certified health and life coach, and we are here to talk all things self-love, self-acceptance, body image, health, and total well-being. You are going to hear from me, plus you'll hear the stories of other women who have transformed this already. They have walked this path, and they have really learned how to love and embrace all parts of themselves. We are here to help you be inspired, motivated, and to help you really transform your relationship with yourself to be a loving and positive force each and every day. This is so important so that you can really reach your big dreams, feel at home in your skin, be healthy on your terms, and live a big life. What are you waiting for? Let's get to it. Today on Self-Love Ignited, I am speaking with Chelsea Michelle. Chelsea is a body image and confidence coach for plus-size women at Unchained Magic. She teaches women the power of body neutrality in order to build a relationship with themselves based on body acceptance, respect, and love. Chelsea breaks down the barriers of limiting beliefs built from diet culture and beauty standards that hold us back and break down our confidence. On today's episode, Chelsea shares her personal story of being faced with diet culture at a very young age and learning how to overcome that and really find her confidence and her power in herself as a beautiful, empowered plus-size woman. Let's dive on in. Chelsea, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is when I heard your story, when we first sort of connected online, I just immediately knew that I really wanted to talk to you and I really wanted to hear more because I really think that it will be so impactful for listeners. So why don't we just sort of start at the beginning? This podcast, we're all about self-love and self-acceptance and really telling the stories of women like you who've come from this place of like self-loathing or body hatred or whatever your thing happens to be, to really like loving yourself and embracing who you are. So why don't you just sort of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and the beginning of those challenges.
Absolutely. So my name is Chelsea Michelle. I'm a body image and confidence coach for plus size women. I use the science of the brain like thought work and NLP and woo like hypnotherapy and intuitive connections with yourself to give women the tools to unlearn beliefs that they've gained from diet culture and beauty standards. I'm from outside of Washington, D.C. I'm obsessed with 90 Day Fiance and The Bachelor. I don't play. I religiously watch those every week. My story with my body started when I was really, really young. I was in kindergarten, and I remember the very first time that I was ever bullied and made fun of. I had a kid, I remember his name to this day, and in gym class in kindergarten, he looked at my legs and said, "Why are your legs so fat?" And I remember hearing that kind of like giggling, like laughter behind me. And it was from that moment on that I realized that I was different, but I was different in not a good way. And that the way that my body looked as it was, even as a child at 5 or 6 years old, was not good. And it made me different. And I immediately felt that there was like a need I had to change. And from then on, it was about, I just became hyper aware of how my mom and my dad and my grandma talked about their bodies, how they were always obsessed with all of those fad diets like Atkins and Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig. And I remember being about like 8 or 9 or 10, and my mom and my grandma got me to go on Weight Watchers with them. And I remember going to like meetings with them and just remembering that my body was something that I was supposed to inherently want to change at all costs. I remember having moments that when I was like 11 or 12 and I would see plastic surgery shows and I was like, if I could just like suck the fat out of my body, like I would be so different. And I would be like the popular girls and I would have boys like me and like all of those sorts of things. And it just kind of morphed into that and kind of became more of my identity of hiding. And then as I got older into middle and high school, it turned into how can I distract people from the fat that exists on my body by, performing and, singing and doing musical theater and stuff like that. Just kind of what could I do people to distract and see something else about me besides my fat, because in my brain, that's what I assumed everyone always saw about me first.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many similarities between our stories. Wow. I think I was 11 the first time I was on Weight Watchers, so I got another year or two on you, but yeah. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. So this sort of like learning that your body was bad or wrong, like right from the time you were you were just a little girl, you were so young, but you learned that lesson. Like how did that follow you into adulthood? When you
Yeah.
finished high school and started like adulting, how did that follow you?
Yeah, so that definitely followed, like I said, it kind of me trying to prove my worth in any sort of way. I went into college and I was thankful to be really, really passionate about music and musical theater and singing. So, I was able to find something that I'm still, was really passionate and a talent, but it drove me to trying to prove my worth and prove
Mm,
what I was capable of doing, because the notion and the belief that you're taught that because your body looks like this, you are less than, and you take that narrative and it turns not only just from how you view yourself physically, but if you're telling yourself you're less than, that's going to bleed into every other part of your life. And you're going to think you're less than when you try to apply for jobs and when you try to, you know, try to like run for like president of like the SCA or anything like that. It's going to make you think you're uncapable and unworthy in all of these different areas. And so I tried to kind of prove the opposite of that by doing all of the things, never saying no because I didn't want people to think less of me. So it turned into like people pleasing and perfectionism. And I know that we can all kind of relate to that. And so much of it, what we don't realize, relates back to the relationship that we were taught to have with our own bodies because of the beliefs that are really just forced upon us by beauty standards and by diet culture. And it even moved into kind of how I would date, and I would try to, I figured I was only able to online date because who would want to approach me in real life? And I would like curate my dating profile to make it so that I looked what I thought and what I was told was the ideal. So like no double chins, no rolls, no cellulite, no nothing, flat stomach, big butt, like all of this kind of stuff that it's decided for you is the ideal, when as you are is your own personal ideal, and that's what matters. And it just turned into, like I said, perfectionism and trying to prove my worth to others instead of just understanding and believing in my own worth first.
yeah. 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 That's so powerful. And I would love to hear, because you even hinted at it in there where, you said, this is what I was doing, when in reality, it should be this, I am my own ideal and I get to decide that. And you now, as you speak, you have this incredible energy about you, and you're so confident, and you're like, you're very empowered in yourself and in your beliefs. So how did you get here? How did you go from that like people pleasing, scared to say no, to being really good within yourself? What was that
Yeah,
journey?
I had this moment that will forever stick out to me in my brain. January 23rd of 2015, I had a moment where I was out of college, I was living back at home, and I was just not in the space that I wanted to be in. I was just so unhappy in every single part of my life. And it was kind of sort of like the start of like the resurgence almost of like body positivity and fat acceptance. And I was just seeing more and more people online. And I had a moment where one morning I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I just heard like my body and myself talk to me in my own head, and just my body kind of saying, please just love me. Please just accept me. And I get goosebumps like every time I think about it, because it was such like a unique and kind of like defining moment. And I couldn't hate myself anymore. I couldn't avoid mirrors anymore. I couldn't choose others' opinions about me and choose others' expectations for me and what my body should be and should do over my own opinions and my own expectations that I wanted and deserved to have for myself. And so before I even knew it, I started doing kind of like baby like thought work. I always called it, I'm replacing the broken record in my brain, because I constantly had these conversations and these thoughts over and over and over that became so normalized and were such a deep part of my subconscious and my belief system that I had to pay the most attention to whatever was going on in my brain as I ever had in my entire life, and just slowly but surely retrain my what I would say to myself, my thoughts, and then thinking those thoughts enough so that they turned into new beliefs.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful and so powerful, right? It's always the little things, the inner work. That's the juicy
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So this journey of really like reworking your thoughts, like you said, like, would you call this a self-love journey, or is there another term that you feel you identify with more?
I think self-love is absolutely it. But there are things that also come before or in combination with that, because you can't build love from a place of hate, because you have existed in shame and in guilt for so long because you're not doing what this overarching thing is telling that you should do and you should be and you should believe. And you can't build love from a place of self-hate. And you have to learn how to accept yourself and your body, and then build respect, and then come to love yourself. And I think that's something that's so important, because your body image is in direct correlation with how you view yourself as a person, separating your body from that. And I think building acceptance, respect, and love is my like holy trinity of how to really reconnect and create that relationship with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. You can't go, I mean, it's like you can't go from 0 to 100. You can't make that jump. And even if you could, it would be so scary and overwhelming that you would end up reverting back, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's the thing that stops us so much too, is that we want to go like gung ho, cold turkey, full in on something when you're starting at, point B, and you try to go straight doing that 180 to the complete opposite. You can't do that. Your brain needs proof. Your brain needs that kind of like middle ground. So instead of, going, if you're at right now, I hate myself, I hate my body, you can't automatically go in the opposite direction and say, I love myself, I love my body. You have to kind of do that neutral building and that in between building, going from I hate my body to I'm learning to believe my body is more than what I currently think, or I'm open to believing that I can like my body.
Yeah.
Something that kind of can bridge that gap and make those connections make more sense in your brain, because that's what your brain is always doing. It's always looking for proof.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I've heard you use the term body neutrality, which I think is what you just described, right?
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
like it's such an important stepping stone
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Body neutrality takes kind of that tenet of thought work, and that anything that you experience is a neutral thing. It's a neutral situation, a neutral circumstance, and has no meaning until you decide to attach a meaning or a thought or an emotion to it. And when you do that, when you take that same concept and you put it towards your relationship with your body has your body is not intrinsically and morally good or bad. It just is. It's a body that gets you from point A to point B. It's a body that is made up of billions of cells that regenerate all throughout the day when you go to sleep. It's a body that allows you to walk and talk. It allows you to hug people that you love. It allows you to do anything that you want to do. And by removing that emotion and being grateful first for what your body is allowed to do and it allows you to do, you begin to understand that you are more than how it looks, and removes that emotion, and you're able to kind of go at it from a deeper level without all of that really like chaotic or like negative energy that's just kind of like trapped all up in there and makes it kind of confusing to separate when
Mm.
you're working on your relationship with your body and yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for you in your own journey, as you've been walking down this path, as your relationship with yourself and your body has gotten, better and more positive and more loving, how has your self-care changed? Like how do you take care of yourself differently now than you did
Yeah.
before?
So I take care of myself so much better in that I actually pay attention to myself. I pay attention to myself before I pay attention to others, and the expectation of me saying yes to them, thinking that is going to make them feel a certain way, which will make me feel better, is just the opposite, because we can't control how other people feel, right? And so a big thing for me was setting up those boundaries in any sort of way. You know, if that meant saying no to something or saying yes to something. Um, so I would set up boundaries for different things in my life. I would repeat new thoughts I wanted to believe. I would watch my own thoughts. And then as I've gotten better at it, I'm now able to kind of coach myself without sometimes needing to journal. But journaling was a huge thing that really kind of changed, how I dealt with my own self and my own journey. Um, and doing these things is a direct result of me choosing myself over others and other things, because I'm my most important priority. And that's because of the deep love that I fostered for myself. And I say this so much. I say this almost every time I go live or anytime I talk to a client, is making a difference in your life is making a single choice every day, and it's choosing yourself every single day. Even if it's one thing, even if it's you decide to go and wake up 5 minutes early to have like a cup of tea before your kids come down for the morning, or you decide to you have roommates and you decide to like go and be by yourself for 10 minutes after you get home from work. It's just choosing yourself in whatever way, to prove that you're choosing yourself now and giving your brain again that proof before you're choosing others and other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I say that all the time too. Choose yourself. Choose yourself. And it really does. I think so often, when you're, for a lot of people, I don't know, I did this, when you're in that like deep, dark place of like really hating on yourself, it seems, first of all, it seems like an almost insurmountable task to start. And that's like what you said about, the little steps between hate and love. But at the same time, it's kind of like, how do you actually physically do that each day? And it really does get to be as simple as actively
Yeah.
choosing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And being on kind of like the other side, like quote unquote the other side, and like the greener grass and all that stuff, is when you're not there, it feels like forever. And it feels like it's just the like depression or the sadness or the self-hate or the loathing is not only normal, and because it feels normal, it feels like that's just how it's always going to be. And if there was one thing that I wish I had been told when I was younger, is that it's not going to last forever. And the sadness will not always be there, and the depression won't always be there. And at some point you will love yourself. You just have to be ready to make that just one tiny choice every single day. Because if you think about it, you make one small choice for yourself every single day. At the end of the year, that ends up being 365 choice times you've chosen yourself over others, or over, towing the line of like your old beliefs that aren't serving you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So you said, at the very beginning for you, it was like being really conscious of those thoughts, right? And like really seeing that old story. How did you know how to do that? Was that like an innate thing inside of you? Did you work with a coach or a counselor? Did you read books? Like, how did you actually know how to do that?
I I I feel like I probably saw it somewhere, and then I was like, just let me get so open and honest with myself. And I think one of the most powerful things that I did and that anyone can do is when you're starting to do this is just get a journal and write everything down. Every single thought that you ever have about yourself in an entire day, good, bad, nitty gritty, great, and just write it down. And again, just stay neutral. Don't go into like the shame game. Don't go into guilting yourself. And then another thing that a lot of people do that keeps you stuck is don't try and white knight yourself. Don't try and go in and save the day and say, oh, you shouldn't be thinking this. It's okay. Like, let's change this. Let's change that. Just write it down and be honest, because when you're just honest and open about what you're really thinking, you're opening up this level of self-awareness that wasn't there before, and this kind of like other level and this other plane in your consciousness that then you're just kind of making more room for that positivity and for that awareness to come in and start to make those changes.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. As you have changed your relationship with yourself, how has that affected the other relationships in your life with your, family, friends, partners? You've mentioned dating before.
Yeah. I would say that by being able to change the relationship that I had with myself, it has made me be more capable to actually be present in the lives of people around me, because unintentionally and through like just not on purpose and through no like trying to like be malicious or anything like that, we get so within ourselves because like victim mode feels so much more comfortable than kind of realizing that maybe, hey, what are we doing that's not right? And so by staying in there, it made, I was very hostile towards people, or I just wouldn't go around and, be with people because I couldn't live outside of my anxieties and my sadness and the negative relationship I had with myself. And at I sometimes would say no to things because I didn't want to be like the fat one out. I didn't want to be the one fat person out of all of my friends. I didn't want to stick out like the sore thumb. Or, like if we went out to like a bar or something, I would be the only one standing there with no guy hitting on me, because who wants to hit on the fat girl, right? And so by taking that journey, I realized that I am more, than my body. I am my own opinion matters more than anyone else's. And so by being more confident in myself, I'm able to enjoy life and say yes to things with my friends and be able to make memories with them and be able to really be present and listen to them and be empathetic with them, because I have so much more space inside of me that isn't taken up by that negativity and that self-hatred that was there before.
That's massive.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. Sometimes I get people coming and they say like, what's the benefit? Like, other than just the fact that you don't hate yourself anymore, like, how does that actually change your life? And I love the picture that you just painted. You're like, this and this and this and this. And like, it really does change everything at the end of the day.
Because you just don't realize how much your thoughts affect the actions that you take, and then the results that you get from those actions. And by simply just changing your thoughts just has like a huge effect on the state that you exist in, and then how you interact with other people, and then how you interact with yourself, and then the things that you go after. And it is literally like completely just life-changing in so many ways.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we know, you've mentioned a little bit like the work that you do with clients, and I know that you are like a kick-ass coach. So tell us a little bit how this journey, like your own personal self-love journey, has really impacted and affected your path to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So I literally started my self-love journey 1 gajillion% inspired me to become a coach, because I realized, and I actually lived like the journey and the change and the difference all of these things made on me, and felt it was completely my calling to share that with other people, because every woman deserves to believe and know without a doubt that she is worthy, beautiful, capable, and is her own person outside of others' expectations and opinions. And with the potential for them to pass that on to the next generation, whether that is young boys or young girls, because men deal with these same sorts of outlandish like body expectations that women do. It and being able to kind of make that generational change and create that kind of like ripple that, oh, if I can love myself and then my friend sees me loving myself, that is enough for me to make that change. And it just like utterly sets my soul on fire. And like, if I get talking about it, like I start to cry because I get like so passionate and it's like so beautiful. It's like thinking about that opportunity, like thinking about our moms and our grandmas that, you know, through no fault of their own, you know, got us to do Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and stuff like that because they didn't know how to love themselves. And being kind of like, just like the stop sign and just like the edge of the cliff where every other like negative mess like falls off and just like falls into like the darkness, and you can just create something so beautiful. And so changing out of that is just really why like I chose to do what I do.
Yeah. You literally just gave me goosebumps like on my legs. I identify so much with that. Yeah. And it's like just the fact that this gets to stop with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of power in that. And like if ever you needed something to light a fire under your butt, that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So why don't you just tell us a little bit more about the actual work that you do with your clients? Like what does that sort of transformation look like?
Absolutely. So the transformation that I do, it really starts with, I focus a lot on beginner steps, even with people who think they kind of like got it a little bit figured out. I start automatically with, I start people with journaling like right away and journaling prompts just to get that relationship back with themselves that they've been ignoring for so long. And then I go into body neutrality and just kind of working and just neutrality in general, whether that's at your emotions or your experiences. And then or your relationship with your body, and then really moving into kind of how can we create that intuitive connection with yourself that's been kind of like marred and lost for so long, and get you really listening to yourself again. And then I go and talk about kind of what is your current story and what do you want your story to be, and then how do we bridge that gap. And then teaching about, I teach a lot about body gratitude is probably the next big step. And then from there, kind of filling in the gaps with, I do a lot of hypnotherapy to speak to the subconscious mind, tapping to help with, you know, that day-to-day anxiety that you have. And as well as thought work is a big thing because I teach all about kind of what you were forced to believe because of all of these pillars in society. And then how do you understand what beliefs are yours and what beliefs aren't yours, and then rewriting things that you want to believe about yourself.
That's beautiful. That is some powerful work. That is some powerful work. Yeah. Yeah. So you have mentioned so many amazing like practices and things that both you have done and that you recommend to your clients to do. But if there was one, you can only pick one, there's one like self-love exercise or practice that you would recommend for listeners who are maybe still sitting in that sort of like really sort of negative headspace, what would that be?
Okay, how can I choose? Okay. I'm going to go with a very simple one, just a very like, it's so simple. It's like one line, and it's an affirmation to begin to change that relationship with yourself. Saying it to yourself when you wake up, saying it to yourself anytime you see yourself, your reflection in anything, whether it's a window, your phone, a storefront. My body is just a body, and I'm learning to accept it as it is. And just like beginning with that, beginning there, and just saying it to yourself over and over. I think repeating that affirmation it lays the basis for all of those other things, and just creates a great starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have a beautiful starting point like that, that is simple and that you can do throughout life, I think also people are more likely to do it. Because if it's too hard, if step 1 is too hard, like what the heck is step 10 going to be, right? It gets too scary. So,
right. Yeah. And because I think a lot of times we get deterred because stuff is like so hard and because it's so overwhelming. And by understanding that, because when you throw someone, oh, you can do this and you can do this and you can do this, it's like, well, I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that. And then just beginning with something so simple that is fully in your power to do, and is that one simple choice that you can make in your day, is just otherworldly.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. So Chelsea, if listeners want to get in touch with you, I have no doubt they will. You have so much goodness. I feel like you and I could talk about this a lot, but then we'd end up all sorts of tangents. Yeah. So if listeners really want to get in touch with you, if they want to find out more about your work, if they want to ask you questions, what is the absolute best place for them to do that?
The absolute best place that they can get in contact with me is on Instagram at Unchained Magic, or just send me a DM, or they can find me inside my private group on Facebook, Confidence Coven for Plus Size Witches. Either place, I am there all of the time, spreading the light and the love and bringing down the patriarchy and diet culture.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, I'll make sure to have all the links for that in the show notes as well, so it's really easy just to click on through.
Great. Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you want to find out more about Chelsea, if you want to learn about the work that she does, or be part of her exclusive private Facebook group, all of the links to do that are down in the show notes. Also, if you want to be part of our private Simplified Self-Love Facebook group, the link is down there as well. Thanks for being here. Here is to you loving all parts of yourself.